Welcome to our Sunday service. I am Nancy Nelson, and I am with Michelle Hazen, and we will be your worship leaders this morning. I have loved UU Life since discovering it about 30 years ago in Oakland, California, and was thrilled to realize it was thriving in Moscow, Idaho when we moved here in 1998. Today, many church celebrations and meetings later, I continue to be inspired and comforted by our UU beliefs and community. Currently, I am a member of our worship committee, which collaborated on this month's theme, pluralism. You've heard how our greater Unitarian Universalist history reflects our pluralistic beliefs and current experience. Today, we hope to understand and appreciate the plurality of beliefs here among us.
Good morning. I am Michelle Hazen. I'm a Cradle UU, born and raised in a small congregation in New Jersey. I have always considered myself a UU, though I took a long hiatus from regular church attendance in my early adulthood. I started attending UUCP consistently, in large part because I wanted my daughter Clover to have a strong religious foundation that emphasized the important values that UUism promotes. What I found since joining is not only does she have a wonderful church community, but so do I. I'd like to extend a special welcome to all of those who are joining us for the first time. We are very glad that you are here. If you've come in person, you should have received a welcome packet with an information card on it. If you fill that out and drop it in the offering basket, we will be in touch to support you in finding your way into our community. If you are joining us online, there is a link on our website to an electronic version of that same card. Our welcoming committee members have yellow name tags and can answer any questions or point you toward additional information. Whether you are new or not, please consider staying for coffee and conversation after the service, either downstairs in our fellowship hall or in the Zoom room. Now, let's say our words of welcome together. Whether this is your first or your 1000th Sunday with us, whether you strolled, rolled, zoomed, ran, or danced in, we are glad you chose to join us. We are one people of many beliefs, identities, origins, sexualities, and genders. All are welcome here. Now, this is my favorite part. Now we will take a moment to say hello across the technical divide. First, we're going to show the people joining us on Zoom. If you are at home, please turn on your cameras. And now, people at home, wave. Okay, and then now, let's see. Now, people who are attending the service in our building, it's your turn to wave. We have an announcement from our Month of Sundays committee, which chooses the organizations that we give our weekly offering to. Next Sunday is the 5th Sunday in the month, a day when we identify a special need to give to. The 5th Sunday collection next week will go to the World Central Kitchen, which feeds people in need around the world. World Central Kitchen has a 4-star rating from Charity Navigator and is currently delivering food by ship to people in Gaza, as well as feeding Ukrainian soldiers and people made homeless by the war in Ukraine. We wanted you to know about this special collection so you can be prepared if this is something that you want to support. Additionally, Nancy and I helped to coordinate the Family Promise connection with our Family Promise organization, and the next 2 weeks we will be hosting guests here who are in transitional housing for Family Promise, and so thanks to everyone who signed up, and also thanks to everyone who's accommodating your activities at the church to enable us to do this. And then Sam, I believe, also has an announcement.
Hey, everybody. I'm Sam Welsh. I'm the music director here. I just had a couple music-related announcements for the week. First of all, happy Holy Week to everybody. As you know, Easter's very early this year, and so next week will be our Easter service. We're very excited. We have Dogwood, the a cappella group led by Matt Cantrell and Janice, will be singing for us, as well as the choir. So first, I wanted to highlight one of Alex's colleagues, Patrick, who's my wife's piano student. He won the concerto competition for the Idaho-Washington Symphony, and there is a performance today at 3 p.m. at the University of Idaho Admin Auditorium. So that's going to be the Idaho-Washington Symphony. And also, if any of you know Roger McVeigh, who is Alex's piano professor and the other piano professor at U of I, his son plays violin and also won one of the prizes, so I think it'd be a cool thing to go support. There is a charge for that, so it's $25 for adults, $10 for kids. Kids under 11 are free, students are free. I also wanted to highlight, if you guys remember, last month we had a number of student performers from the Black Student Union who came and performed for us. Did Washira make it? No. Okay, he's walking here, so he'll be here at some point. But Washira, who sang for us, asked if he could perform an evening of African American spirituals. So, of course, we said yes. And so there's a little poster. I'll have it up in the booth, and then there's one down on the door. But that's going to be Saturday here at 7 p.m. Now, that one's going to be free, but we are going to use it as an excuse to raise money for the BSU, the Black Student Union at U Idaho. So, great. Thank you.
Here end the announcements. We preface our service, all of our services, by acknowledging our church was built on the ancestral homelands of the Nimipu, called the Nez Perce by the French-speaking traders, the Palouse and the Shishunks, called the Coeur d'Alene. Let us pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that was stolen, ground that cries out for justice and for responsible stewardship. May our remembering help us find the courage to do our part and to restore wholeness to earth and all her peoples. We are hoping that folks at home joining us on Zoom have a chalice or candle to light and something to light it with. Let's light our chalices together. And Clover. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share. This month, we have been engaging in deep learning about the pluralism of our Unitarian Universalist life. Last week, we met 6 Unitarian Universalist leaders whose faith traditions included Muslim, atheist, Jewish, Christian, Wiccan, and Buddhist. So many roots, so many beliefs that grow together to be what we call our UU beliefs. Today, we hold up the mirror to see what we look like. What diversity of beliefs is there in this sanctuary? We can see our physical differences, but what lives inside us that is different? Our first opening words come from Reverend Zenshin Florence Kaplow, a Buddhist priest and UU minister that Reverend Elizabeth interviewed for last week's service. There is a richness, there is a lack of rigidity, and one of the things that I love, love, love about our faith community is that we understand that we don't have to believe alike in order to do what we do together. That gives us room to find out what is our own particular medicine and then share that. And from Adelaide Stevenson, a U.S. presidential candidate and Unitarian, there is nothing to fear in difference. Difference, in fact, is one of the healthiest and most invigorating of human characteristics, without which life would become meaningless. I'd like to invite worship committee member and musicologist Mary Dupree to introduce our opening hymn.
I will introduce both of our hymns at the same time. Our two hymns have numerous songs. Our two UU hymnals have numerous songs from different world traditions. Some use both the words and create new melodies. Some use both the original words, maybe translated, and melodies. Generally, these songs, like the two in today's service, use repeated phrases to open the singers up to emotional or spiritual states. That's true of the songs we're going to sing today, Filled with Loving Kindness. Is that the first one we're doing today? Okay, and then Shabbat Shalom. Loving kindness comes from the Buddhist tradition, and Shabbat Shalom comes from the Hebrew tradition. The hymns that I grew up with in a mainstream Protestant church, and which constitute the majority of those in our hymnals, generally come from the European tradition, either Catholic or Protestant, and tend to be either didactic or narrative. They're comfortable and familiar to me. But the songs from the world's other religious traditions help me understand that they embody not just our own UU worldview, but who in fact we in this space and individually are. I think we realize this instinctively when we sing them, but it's a good reminder of our pluralism to read in the small print at the bottom of our hymns in the hymnal the immense plurality of the traditions that we represent.
Thank you, Mary. Please rise in body or spirit, and we'll sing together. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shalom.
Now let's take a moment to engage in the practice of generosity together. For those of you who are able to make a financial contribution, the logistics are on your screen. We typically give away all the cash from our Sunday offering to local charities whose missions align with our values, a program called Month of Sundays. This month, the recipient is the area on aging and coast. The Agency on Aging supports well-being for aging Idahoans. Services fortify the ability of people to remain independent at home, stay safe, and plan for successful aging. COAST is part of the Council on Aging and provides rides for all citizens who need access to basic necessities or activities enhancing the quality of their lives. I'd like to add a special thank you to Archie George, a longtime member whose volunteer driving for COAST makes it possible for them to help many people. To donate, please indicate month of Sundays on your check from the online drop-down menu. In the spirit of love and for the continuing work of this church, we now take some time to practice generosity together. And now I'd like to invite Fran Rodriguez, a member of our pastoral care team, to come forward to lead Joys and Sorrows.
Just a second, Fran.
Voice and talk to the whole room anyway.
Hello there. Now is the time in our service when we lift up our joys and sorrows. The sharing of joys and sorrows is a sacred ritual in our community, a time to briefly acknowledge truly significant life events. So go ahead and get comfortable. Take a few deep breaths and check in with your heart. Sorrow comes into every life. Each of us suffers losses and setbacks. Each of us knows defeat. Together, we create a circle of compassion wide enough to hold all the sorrow in our hearts, all the pain in our lives. Joy, too, comes in every life. Hearts are made to love. This world and the people in it are unbearably beautiful. And together, we create a circle of celebration deep enough to hold all the joy in our lives. If you have a sorrow to share, I invite you to come forward now and form a line. Please keep your sharing to a sentence or two. No sorrows is kind of nice. And I will read the part about joy again because I read it in the wrong order. Joy too comes into every life. Hearts are made to love. This world and the people in it are unbearably beautiful. Together we create a circle of celebration deep enough to hold all the joy in our lives. If you have a joy to share, please come forward.
Hi, I'm Pam, and my joy is that my brother, I have one brother, my brother's wife is going to be recovering from the surgery she had in her leg. She's in her early 60s, and she had a new hip, a new knee, and a new thigh bone all put in at the same time about 3 weeks ago. And it was pretty rough there for a while.
I have a couple joys. One is that the long-toed salamanders have laid their eggs, and in my pond, and the other one is I participated in somebody's baptism and it went well. It's a long story, so I won't go into it.
Every life, every heart, every one of us at any moment is filled with joys, sorrows, hopes, dreams, and concerns. I'll light a final candle for all that which is in our heart and that is yet too tender to share. Life, however fragile, is a gift, and we in this community of memory, caring, and hope celebrate this gift today and all days. Amen and blessed be.
Let's sing together again our hymn, Filled with Loving Kindness.
to respond to 3 questions that are often difficult to answer. Not just, it's in my line of sight there. There we go. Not just because the subjects are so wide, they cannot be easily defined. We chose them too because sharing about these subjects is a practice of vulnerability. It has the potential to create new connections and better understanding. It honors our UU principle, the acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Our first question reflects on God. My daughter Clover once saw a sign in a Christian church that said, "Worship only God," and she was like, "Ooh, I don't like that. In our church, we can do, whatever we want." So, it's easy to assume what a person means when you say the word God. Yet it is improbable that anyone in this congregation would have the same description if we were assigned to define it. So let's hear from some of our congregant contributors on the question, what is God to you?
Good morning. I am an atheist. Is this all there is? Yes. We living things appear on our own. Afterlife seems unlikely, heaven a fantasy. I perceive order, but no God. I am in awe, yet I worship nothing. This is all, but it is huge. It is wondrous. Thank you.
Personally, I tend to use higher power, HP for short, but I accept the word God just the same. I'm someone who used to identify quite strongly with atheism. And me from 5 years ago would be mocking current me for what I'm about to say, and it's my truth, so here we go. For me personally, my entryway into understanding what God is to me was through the gift of desperation. In a moment, there I am, in utter humiliation and complete despair, the kind that had me on my knees, with my head in my hands, hunched over in incomprehensible agony, crying those ugly tears. I had a flash of insight that allowed me to see things from a more expansive perspective, not so much a different perspective, more of a yes and kind of deal. And through no virtue of my own, I became willing to set aside, not reject, mind you, but set aside everything I think I know, and to ask for and receive help. And in doing so, quite accidentally, I grew towards my Creator. To me, desperation is truly a gift because it allows me to be more open-minded and honest, to accept universal grace, and be willing to grow along spiritual lines even when I have no idea what any of that means. And so here's a little gimmick someone shared with me that works for me when it comes to the word God. If I'm having trouble with the word, if it's conjuring up in me some sort of childlike anxiety of a Santa Claus in the clouds that I find personally revolting, then I simply replace the word God with the acronym Gift of Desperation, G-O-D. What I'm most grateful for today is that I can experience God's grace through entryways not necessarily rooted in pain. I can find God today in relationship with myself, with parts of myself that may or may not be in conflict, in community, with earth, with the oxygen that I breathe, with the moon and the stars and the awe and wonder of how I am both so small and yet connected to everything that currently exists, ever has existed, and ever will exist. And so when I'm feeling totally alone, which honestly is not infrequently as a trans person in Idaho, I can trust I am never alone, and I can have faith that nothing is ever as bad as it seems, nor as good as it seems. For me, God is beyond the binary. Thank you.
There you are.
Ooh, there we go. That's loud. Okay, well, that was a good start. So I find it really hard to use the word God. It just does not resonate with me. So I kind of look at the idea of the God concept instead. So thinking about the God concept brings me to an exploration of when I feel the most at peace in the world. This would be best described as when I live fully, deeply, and in gratitude for myself and others around me. It often takes form in the natural world for me. I draw inspiration from the earth, sky, water, and plants. This can look like a walk in the red sands of the desert Southwest, floating as one down a wild, free-flowing river, or stargazing on a moonlit night in a quiet wilderness with trees as my companions. It feels comfortable to think of the circle of life, knowing that there are always beginnings and endings, rebirth and renewal, equity in stature for all beings, and even elevated status to nature and animals to draw on for symbolism, as indigenous cultures have practiced for millennia before. Looking to nature for purity, clarity, love, wisdom, illumination, growth, trust, experience, strength, and most of all, introspection. It can also come in much simpler forms as well, such as paying attention to the falling leaves, drizzling raindrops, or a gentle smile to a passerby, otherwise gone unnoticed. A sense of well-being comes from these experiences, deeply embraced beyond an ordinary life of meals, sleep, and daily tasks to complete, of which there are always many, and it's easy to get entangled in. To me, these experiences represent seeking an increased sense of empowerment and the ability to create positive change in my life and the ripple effect of that positive energy towards others. This comes from within and acts as a constant companion that attempts to foster ease, joy, and gentle optimism, a quiet sense of miraculous, fostering creativity and spirituality that are inextricably linked.
What is God? I believe that God is not a being, but a symbol. God symbolizes hope, forgiveness, justice, devotion, responsibility, purpose, and love. Although I do not believe that God itself exists, I hold the belief that the philosophies it represents can lead us to morality and self-discovery. As an atheist, I am sure that God does not exist as a supernatural being. However, I would never discourage one from believing in it or any other gods that may exist in one's religion, as long as their beliefs help them steer them towards ethicality. Faith only becomes dangerous when individuals or groups attempt to force their beliefs upon others. When religion is imposed upon unwanting individuals, it can lead to hate, which in turn can result in a hindrance to self-discovery. If one is to believe in God, they must decide to do so on their own without the stress of outside pressure. The same goes for atheism and agnosticism. One must decide to be an atheist or agnostic themselves and not be pressured to identify in any way they feel is untrue. To conclude, while I do not believe in God, I believe that the philosophies it stands for are important when it comes to morality and fulfillment in one's life. Whether an individual finds hope, forgiveness, justice, devotion, responsibility, purpose, and love by believing in God directly or by simply living those values is irrelevant. As long as we are the best versions of ourselves, it does not matter the differences in our beliefs. Thank you.
Thank you to Gary, Brianna, Jennifer, and Paloma. Our second question addresses a topic often associated with religion, yet it is not a required practice of Unitarian Universalists. We recognize many people may participate in this practice as UUs, and many may eschew it or have not contemplated it at all. To hear of praying may conjure a rigid, prescribed act with specific rules for how to do it correctly. When we set aside these assumptions, we can see the different ways that prayer is part of the lives of some of our fellow congregants and how it looks for them. So we asked, is prayer part of your life?
My parents, being atheists, never spoke to me about God, spirit, or any other sort of higher power. When I asked my mother to explain God, something my playmates often mentioned, she told me it was something in which stupid people believed. Her answer didn't satisfy me. I didn't quite understand the concept of a deity, but my Christian playmates described a mighty being who watched over us, to whom we could offer prayers of love and requests for solace. I think even at the tender age of 5, I sensed connection to something greater than my small self, to which I longed to be a part. Under the tutelage of my best friend Bonnie, I learned a simple child's prayer, which I recited quietly at night. Now I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Neither my mother nor my father knew I prayed at night. I didn't actually understand the words of my prayers, but they gave me comfort during the time when my parents' marriage began to fall apart. I didn't feel so alone. Many spiritual paths teach ways to connect with the mystery that some people call God. As a child, I used a simple prayer, ritualized words that I assumed had power. I had no religion or teacher to guide me. I never stopped feeling that some sort of presence guided my way during a time when I felt most in need of guidance. I didn't always believe that my prayers made a difference, and as I grew older, I didn't always recite them. But something inside me continued to seek greater spiritual connection. I dabbled with a variety of spiritual teachings before I found blessed community within the UU Church. In this community, I feel free to explore my own connections to a greater consciousness. I do not believe in a magical man on a throne in a place called heaven. My personal relationship to spirit is that I am a small part of an infinite universal consciousness. My prayers are now a pouring of my heart through poems and daily journaling, my ritual for joining my small spark to the greater fire that animates this physical universe. I offer gratitude for my life and community as I imagine a world in which compassion and caring replace violence, greed, and lust for power. This is my personal offering to the universe.
There was a fox squirrel that was particularly destructive to my potted plants. Being as it was an invasive fox squirrel from back east, someone dispatching them would simply have made them a victim of humanity's folly for introducing them to an area where they were doing harm. I got mad enough to suggest it needed to have its head run over by a truck. I found him, a rather large dominant male, with his head run over in the street. I figured it was simply a coincidence. Like the time I had found his previous brethren who had been doing damage I found dead in the lawn. I had just been just as angry at that squirrel for their part in disrupting my efforts to rear native plants. I told these stories about these squirrels to Glenn Butters, a a once liberal neo-pagan who had kept the nature spirituality when he became more of a deist. He thought it sounded like I might have manifested most powerful form of magic some neo-pagans only strive for. My liberal Christian friend, Andy Pope, simply said, "Be careful what you pray for." Being an agnostic, I didn't know what had happened. I do remember Unitarian Universalists had suggested prayer was a way to get your own thoughts in order. They did not go into whether you could change reality or not. It occurred to me an omniscient God would already know what was on your mind in the first place. Regardless of if thoughts can manifest in ways that change reality through mind over matter or not, I now realize that any thought can be viewed as a prayer. Just be careful what you wish for. You're welcome.
So I don't have a regular prayer habit or practice, but I do like to send out prayers of gratitude often, and especially after emerging from hard times. I most resonate with prayers to a universal life force for ordinary things of life that I try not to take for granted, like indoor running water, clean, fresh air that we have in Idaho most of the time, a furnace and a modern thermostat that I did live without for quite a few years, fresh food, especially fruits and vegetables, and functioning plumbing that I lived without recently. When I feel small and more helpless, my childlike self likes to pray to Mother Earth. These prayers are usually for strength and for help getting through hard situations. I'm a part of the Wellspring group, and as a member of that, we were asked to develop a spiritual practice. And part of mine is my morning walk with my dogs. On my walk, I try to pay attention to the changes in the plants and the birds and insects around me, and I find that's another form of prayer as a gratitude prayer.
I often think that I don't pray. But I realize that I do indeed pray. I pray when I am in awe of something I see or touch, a new bud in spring, an insect's thin wings that nevertheless can fly, or the towering clouds. I pray when I remember to be thankful. Thankful for the little flower, or a flower becoming a fruit, or that someone smiled at me. I pray when I ask my deepest heart, which is not actually me, but something that is bigger than me, for guidance. I have been in prayer when I managed to do something which, somehow, fits with the bigger world around me in a special way that I could not plan or know. I pray when I listen to that still, small voice within, the something that is bigger than me, a little like my conscience, but so much bigger and wiser, not constrained, nor concerned about perfection. For me, prayer is a communication between me and that which is bigger than me, the biggest, widest, deepest there is, wisdom, spirit of life, still, small voice, holy. Actually, it's very confusing. Even so, I'm a better version of myself when I do it. So yes, prayer is a part of my life.
Thank you, Fran, Rod, Barbara, and Melody. With our last question, we wanted to reveal the rewards of creating a place where pluralism is part of our foundation. We are part of a worldwide network of spiritually curious Unitarian Universalists who value and explore our diverse, multi-religious world. Here on the Palouse, we are continually finding out what it means to create a place where many different textures of belief are woven together. Now, we want to celebrate what we've created by asking, how is love reflected in our pluralistic community?
One of our principles is the free and independent search for meaning. I see so much love in the respect and acceptance given to UU youth. They're free to search for, find, and express meaning in or out of the church, and we celebrate and love them for it. That is a profound and risky love that I did not grow up with.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Rod. Is this on okay? I've been a member of this congregation since 1992, and I can say with all certainty that this is the spiritual home I was yearning for all my life. And given the theme for this month on religious pluralism, I've decided that I'm a goddess-oriented Lutheritarian. I grew up in the Midwest steeped in Lutheranism on both sides of my family. I attended a Lutheran elementary school and graduated from a Lutheran college in my own hometown. But I left that faith behind in my late college days because I finally came to terms with what I'd been struggling so hard with in my early 20s, the fact that I was gay. And in the early 1970s in my church, being homosexual was a sin. So I found myself faced with a difficult choice, God or love. And I was in love, and I knew that love was good. But I missed being part of a church community, the singing, the sharing, the family feeling, and I ached for that spiritual sense of belonging. Fast forward 20 years later, in early 1992, when my wife Teresa and I overheard a conversation about this church one day in the Old Book People downtown. Folks were saying there was a woman minister here, and that was a big deal back in 1992. And that she loved music, and that she was a lesbian, and that was the Reverend Lynn Unger. So we decided we had to come, and long story short, we're still in this church 32 years later. From day one, I felt the relief and acceptance of being among people who were fully welcoming. It was amazing to be so embraced, supported, and valued. Being able to be all of who I was freed me to delve more deeply into my spiritual life. Not being limited by dogma and creeds enabled me to enlarge the meaning and inclusion of what is sacred. This has made all the difference to be spiritually free and to be in a religious community that is pluralistic and inclusive. This is a place where being together is important, sharing together is important, supporting each other is important. Being interconnected is of utmost importance because that is how we and where we find meaning. From committees to choir, to coffee and potlucks, from making quilts and moving furniture, to moving over for each other, we expand our ever-growing circle so that each person can find belonging. I find love everywhere in this church, exactly because of our pluralistic approach to religion and soul searching, and this inclusiveness and openness that creates a safe and unlimited space for nurturing and belonging.
For me, love is based in unconditional acceptance, in embracing, in feeling seen. The first time I felt love in this community was my first time reading and saying the words of welcome. The words of welcome have changed slightly since my first time here, but there was the particular phrase that said, "Exactly as you are." On my very first Sunday here, I came alone and sat in the back over on that side, and I was feeling so nervous. I was curious to learn more about this community, and I wondered if I might have a place here. The spoken message that I was welcome here, exactly as I am, spoke deeply to my heart. I was worried that coming from a Mormon or Latter-day Saint background and still having respect and affection for aspects of that religious tradition, that I might be viewed with suspicion or kept at a distance. But right from the beginning of the service, the values of this community were made clear to me. This is a community of many beliefs, and all are welcome. I love saying our words of welcome every Sunday. And those aren't empty words. I have seen actions that align with those words. In personal meetings with Elizabeth, in small groups, in sermons I have given, and in casual conversations, I have been able to share about myself, including my religious background, and I have felt embraced, welcomed, and seen. I have felt loved.
Thank you, Charla, Rebecca, and Lauren. Thank you to all of our speakers today. Your willingness to share something so personal as your beliefs about God, prayer, and love is profoundly humbling. You are very generous and brave. You have shown us how to put words to parts of us that may often remain hidden. I too often depend on the hope that my acts will reveal the tenets I live by, but you have spoken yours out loud. Imagine for a moment more of us being comfortable sharing our answers to these questions. What would we learn about each other? How hard would it be? Perhaps sometime you will talk about these things. We hope it will be easier because you will know that you and your beliefs are celebrated here. For our closing music, we have a video, Tracy Chapman singing Heaven's Here on Earth.
In words adapted from Walt Whitman, do we contradict ourselves? Yes, we contradict ourselves. We are wide. We contain multitudes. And now, please rise in body or in spirit to sing our musical benediction, There is a Love. Please join me in the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this chalice as it might grow gently in our hearts. May it light our paths as we leave this place, and may it guide our way until we are together again. May we respect the otherness of others and make no claim to exclusivity. Join us for coffee hour in the fellowship hall. So be it, and so may it be, and come back next Sunday.